Well, the kissing booth is very different than I thought it would be. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. We got these hyphens on this one. 20th Century Fox slash Hulu slash Disney have put out this Hulu original titled The Princess, starring Joey King, which acts as this, I want to say, like exploitation feminist action film. Much in the vein of something like Kill Bill or Atomic Blonde, as far as being that this female powering vehicle. None of the men in this movie are good at all, including the father. He sort of is feeding his daughter out and not wanting anyone to hear about her. This is something that happens in all those films back in the day, where the father betroths the daughter to another man, another kingdom, another man, so that he can continue his heir. All he has is daughters, so he's like, I don't care about what you say or what you want, and that's sort of the bleeding line through this flick. And then he finally comes around at the end, but it's more because she just saved the kingdom and him more than there was some type of heart-to-heart moment that they had that he came around. Um, there's good things and bad things about this film. I'll say this about this. Anytime you have a movie, Kill Bill probably being the one outlier, although we finally do get her name towards the end. Anytime you have a character whose name we don't know, you typically know how much character development is being done towards that character. And unfortunately, Joey King's character is known as the princess the entire time. While everybody else in the film has a first name, she just goes by an archetype, which is on purpose, I would imagine, because they want to make her more of a beacon of of badassery. But it just leaves a lot to be desired when you're doing character development. It feels soulless and it's missing a heartbeat. The action sequences are great in this movie. Joey King is a badass. And it's clear that she's doing all these action sequences, because the one thing I will say that's great is that they pull back. They're not tight shots, they're not doing cuts, they're letting it kind of pull back and flow and letting her do her thing. I just wish that young lady did not have to go through as much pain and agony as she did to make this film for something that is so bare bones of a script. I think that Joey, in a much better vehicle, in a much better script, would do a lot better overall with an action film. I think she could be an action star. It's just hard to see it 100%. She's done all the work. It's just the script leaves her a bit hanging out there to dry. This movie is sort of a merge or mesh between Brave, where you have this princess who's been betrothed and doesn't want that and kind of just bucks the system, and then the prince in this one is a sociopath. He captures her and he sort of becomes this Judge Dredd thing, where she has to get from Dredd with Carl Urban, because he went from having to climb up a tower to get to the final boss. She has to climb down a tower to get to the final boss. It plays very much like a video game, which is great when you're playing it. When you're playing a video game, you're in it. And you're like, oh man, this is great, because you as a person are connecting to whatever character you're playing. When you're just watching action sequences happen over and over and over again, it gets repetitive and it gets very bland, because for this movie, you don't have a character that you actually connect to. It just feels like we're going through the motions of what an action movie is supposed to do. It feels very much on rails. And about halfway through, I'm like, oh, this action, she's killing people pretty cool. The blood is pretty sweet. And after a while, you're kind of like, all right, guys, get to the point. I know what's going to happen. She's eventually going to buck the system, get around, and kill everybody. We get there. Can we get there faster? Because nothing you're giving me in the middle of this is worthy enough for me to continue on. It's only an hour and a half, but it feels like you're in this for at least a 2-hour flick, which is not a good thing when you have something that moves as quickly as this is attempting to do. It's action sequence upon action sequence upon action sequence, and you never really have a moment to breathe to kind of get to know who the princess is, or how this world sort of works. And I don't know if the director particularly cares about you knowing that or wants you to know that, but it is something that I want to know as a viewer, because I can never get really that attached to her. I'm watching her go through the motions, but I don't get her. And that is what makes these type of exploitation films go from being, oh, this is a fun movie you pop on, do some other things, like, oh, that's a cool action sequence, versus, oh, that's one of my favorite action female films ever, like Atomic Blonde or Kill Bill. This isn't on that level. This is very much lower tier because you never have a moment to kind of get to know her. Which sucks because I think Joey's doing everything she can to sort of make this work. I think there's some other cool, there's some very cool fight sequences in it. Although I don't know what the budget is on this. I'd have to look that up. But there are moments when you can kind of tell this is being made on a shoestring budget. Some of the CGI when we started dealing with fire or dealing with water jumping from one spot to another, you can tell it's a little rough around the edges. All in all, The Princess is a decent action film with some pretty cool action sequences that just is very hollow and shallow and has no real merit to exist other than to show you that Joey King, when given a good script, could be a complete and total badass. And I am sad that because I can tell that she busted her ass for this. Like these shots are long tracking shots. Some of these, you can tell that she worked her ass off for this. And I just hope that people are able to take the good of what she is doing in this film out and say, hey, maybe we can try her at other things versus what this movie is giving you. And I hope she can kind of get out of that kissing booth stuff because I think there's some meat on this. Look, they don't give her anything to really say besides those throwaway action lines like "I'll be back" type stuff until an hour into the film, and then she has a moment where she's in front of the kingdom and she's tearing up, and I was like, we need more of this. The character is in there, we just don't get to see it. So, for me overall, there are many other things that I would rather watch and tell you to watch besides like The Princess. So on my scale of play it again, Sam, once is enough. I didn't mind that. Or give me a time stone so I never had to think about this film again. This falls in that. I didn't mind that. Look, it is not the worst thing that I've seen. I've seen far more terrible films, but it is very forgettable. Even while you're in it, it is forgettable. But there's like a beacon of hope that I want the best for Joey King's character. I'm going to keep calling her that because The Princess is just a ridiculous name for a lead character for the entire film. But I just want more for Joey King in it, and this film never actually gives her that. But what did you guys think about The Princess? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We are there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.